What if I told you that every single trigger that you experience are actually love letters from your soul, desperately trying to show you exactly where you need healing? That burning anger when someone criticizes you, that jealousy you feel when your partner notices another, that crushing anxiety when things feel out of control? What if those weren't character flaws or weaknesses, but actually love letters from your soul, desperately trying to show you exactly where you need healing? I know that sounds completely backwards because we've been taught our whole lives that triggers are the enemy, something to suppress, avoid, to overcome. But here's what changed everything for me. Picture this. You're having a beautiful day, feeling centered and peaceful. Then someone makes one small comment that sends you spiraling. That moment, most of us think, why am I so sensitive? Why can't I get over this? But what if that reaction is actually your soul's GPS system pointing directly to an unhealed part of you that's ready for freedom? So, in the next few minutes, I'm going to completely shift how you see your emotional reactions. We'll explore why your nervous system creates these intense responses in the first place. And it's not what you think. I'll share the exact framework that I'm using to transform my relationship with my triggers from fear to curiosity. And by the end, you'll have practical tools to actually receive the messages that your soul is trying to send you. But first, I need to tell you about the day that I realized my biggest trigger was actually my greatest teacher. Imagine you're in a conversation with someone you care about, and they say something that hits you like a lightning bolt. Your chest tightens, your face flushes, and suddenly you're 8 years old again, feeling completely misunderstood and invisible. The words weren't harsh, but something about the tone made you feel completely dismissed and unimportant. Instead of my usual pattern of either exploding with anger or shutting down completely, something different happened. I felt this inner voice whisper, "Pay attention. This matters." Instead of judging myself for being too sensitive, I got curious. What was this reaction really about? What was my soul trying to tell me? As I sat with this question, memories surfaced of countless times as a child when life was confusing, my voice felt unheard, and when my needs felt invisible. This trigger wasn't about the present moment at all. It was my inner child, still waiting to be seen and valued, using this moment to say, "Hey, remember me? I still need healing." Now here's where everything flips. You've been taught that emotional maturity means not getting triggered. But what if emotional maturity is actually about getting curious when we are triggered? Think about it. If you never had an emotional reaction to anything, you'd miss all the valuable information your psyche is trying to give you. Your triggers aren't evidence that you're broken or you're too sensitive. They're evidence that you're human. And more importantly, they're roadmaps to your healing. Every single trigger contains intel about what needs attention, love, and integration. So let me share with you the framework that changes everything. I call it the love method. Listen, observe, validate, embrace. Listen means actually hearing what your trigger is telling you instead of immediately trying to shut it up or fix it. When that familiar surge of emotion rises, instead of thinking, "Oh no, here I go again," try thinking, "What are you trying to tell me?" Observe is about stepping back and witnessing the trigger without becoming it. You're not the trigger. You're the awareness experiencing the trigger. That's a huge difference. Validate means honoring that reaction. Makes sense based on your history. Of course you react strongly to feeling dismissed if you grew up feeling invisible. Of course criticism sends you into a spiral if love felt conditional in your early years. And embrace. This is the magic. Instead of pushing the emotion away, you breathe into it. You allow it. You let it be there. You might even thank it for trying to protect you, while gently letting it know that you're safe now. This isn't about becoming a doormat or letting people treat you poorly. This is about healing the wound so the trigger loses its power over you. Before we go deeper, I'm curious, what's your biggest trigger? Drop it in the comments. Sometimes just naming it takes half its power away. And if this is resonating, please hit that like button. Here's what most people don't understand about triggers. They're almost never about what's happening now. They're about what happened then. Imagine your psyche as a loving bodyguard that's been protecting you since childhood. When you were little and someone hurt you, your nervous system said, "Never again," and created a protective mechanism. Maybe you learned to people please to avoid rejection. Maybe you learned to control everything to feel safe. Maybe you learned to shut down emotionally to avoid being hurt. These were brilliant survival strategies when you were small and powerless. But here's what happens. That protective mechanism doesn't know you're grown up now. It's still operating from that assumption that you're that vulnerable child who needs defending. So when something in your present life even slightly resembles that old pain, the alarm bells start ringing. Your trigger response isn't you being weak or dramatic. It's your inner protector trying to keep you safe in the only way it knows how. The problem is, what used to protect you might be limiting you now. And the beautiful thing is when you recognize this, you can actually dialogue with that protector part of yourself. You can thank it for its service while gently letting it know that you're capable of handling things differently now. So how do you actually do this in real life? Let me give you a practical example. Imagine someone cancels plans with you last minute. Your initial reaction is anger mixed with hurt. Old you might have sent a passive-aggressive text or started this whole story about how people don't respect you. New you pauses and gets curious. You feel the surge of emotion. Instead of judging it, you ask, what is this really about? Maybe you realize it touches that old fear of being abandoned or not being important enough. You validate that reaction. Of course you feel hurt, given your history. Then comes the magic moment. You breathe into that feeling instead of away from it. You might even place your hand on your heart and say something like, I see you, inner child. I know this feels scary, but we're safe now. And one canceled plan doesn't mean we're not loved. Breathe it in. This doesn't mean you become a doormat. You can absolutely have conversations about respect and boundaries. But you're responding from wholeness instead of a wound. You're choosing your response instead of being hijacked by your reaction. And here's the beautiful thing. The more you heal those old wounds, the less power external circumstances have to derail your peace. I want to share what happened when I started treating my triggers as messengers instead of enemies. That same trigger I told you about earlier, feeling dismissed and unheard. It used to completely hijack my day. I would ruminate for hours, creating stories about not being valued and either withdraw or over communicate, trying to be heard. But as I started applying this framework, something shifted. When that familiar feeling arose, instead of resistance, I felt almost grateful. I have a message, a love letter. Like, oh, here's my soul showing me exactly where I need some love and attention. I began having these beautiful internal conversations with my inner child, reassuring her that she was seen and valued. The most amazing thing happened. Not only did those triggers lose their intensity, but I started attracting relationships and situations where I naturally felt heard and valued. When you heal that wound, you stop unconsciously creating situations that poke at it. And this isn't just about emotional healing. This is about reclaiming your power from anything outside of yourself. This is about true freedom. So the next time you get triggered, I want you to try something radical. Instead of anger, shame, or frustration, try curiosity. Instead of, why am I like this? Try, what is this trying to show me? Your triggers aren't evidence that you're broken. They're invitations to wholeness. They're your soul's way of saying, hey, there's still some healing available here. Are you ready? Every trigger is a doorway. Every emotional reaction is information, and every moment of intensity is an opportunity to love yourself back to wholeness. Your sensitivity isn't a weakness. It's a superpower waiting to be understood. I want to hear from you. In the comments, share one trigger you're ready to see differently. What would change if you viewed it as a love letter instead of an attack? If this shifted something for you, smash that like button and subscribe for more content about emotional healing and spiritual awakening. Your triggers are not your enemy. They're your teachers. And you're ready for the lesson. You're ready.